Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
We'll talk about two things today. One is this sort of unexpected commotion in Singapore, in India, because of what happened in Singapore over what was called as the Singapore strain, or some strain, some peculiar strain or some peculiar avatar of this virus which particularly targets children. That led to trouble. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal issued a statement and Singapore protested, so we'll talk about that a bit. And second, we'll talk about a phenomenon which should worry us now a great deal, which is that while the cities, Delhi, Mumbai, even Bengaluru to some extent, they are now, because of active containment, lots of testing and also better medical facilities. They may not be perfect, they are far from perfect, they are not Western country standards, but they are much better than rural India. So, the trouble right now is that there is more and more evidence that COVID is reaching rural India, where forget treatment, even testing is very poor. So, people can just be sick for a long time, a lot of people will recover. It was a fever, it was a viral flu, fever, whatever, बुखार हुआ, ठीक हो गए, लेकिन सब ठीक भी नहीं होते. Everybody doesn't get okay. So, you see now increasingly, and now these stories are becoming monotonous, but these are coming from deep rural areas of how a lot more deaths are being recorded than people tested for COVID, and these are deaths all because of mysterious fevers, which you would presume these days is COVID. So, COVID is now a burrow deep into our countryside, and we have to look at some evidence and some pointers to that. That should, one, worry us. Second, should underline to us the state of our rural health care and what needs to be done, because sooner or later, sooner hopefully than later, the COVID crisis will be over. But we should not forget how poorly served rural India is when it comes to health. We might say that our cities are poorly served because we've seen people crying for oxygen, remdesivir, now amphotericin, this new black fungus drug, or hospital beds, oxygen beds, ICUs, everything. But think about what the situation in our villages is, and that is what a bunch of things that have happened, a bunch of information, especially a bunch of stories done by our young reporters tell us the state of the villages is. So, we will also talk about that. First of all, Singapore. Now, what's happened in Singapore and between Singapore and India is so typical and so representative of the fact-free arguments, tamashas, controversies and just raising of passions that takes place in India right now. It does happen in a lot of democracies, not Singapore particularly, because Singapore is a very qualified kind of democracy, but in India in particular, given so much social media and so much of this commando comic TV and so much lack of restraint also on the part of the media to jump into making scientific claims or accepting scientific claims or picking up pop science from here and there, and then politicians then picking up that baton and running with it, particularly when it suits them, that this is a very good example of the perils of this. So, what happened? We know that the Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, said that a third wave of coronavirus could be coming. It is inevitable. Other people have also said it, including our Chief Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister, Dr. Vijay Raghavan, who is a first-class scientist. But he also said that we have to be prepared and build the wherewithal to counter it, because the third wave may target our children. And this, what did he ascribe this to? He said that's because a new virus, new COVID virus variant has now emerged in Singapore, which particularly targets children. So, now COVID thought that it had got bored and fed up of attacking old people. They were too easy to kill or too easy to harm. So, let me try my hand, and now COVID is attacking a lot of younger people, young adults, etc. Now, maybe COVID thought that let me also check out the children. They might be more quote unquote fun for a bad virus. So, fun for a bad virus, not for us. don't misunderstand it. I have to be very careful. So let me produce a new variant that will attack the kids, and let me produce that variant in little anodyne, first world, super rich and super hypochondriac Singapore, which is very health conscious. So that is what the story became. Now, what was Arvind Kejriwal responding to? Arvind Kejriwal was responding to headlines in a couple of newspapers that day that a new variant is attacking children in Singapore, and because this variant has attacked children in Singapore, Singapore government has decided to shut down its schools again. Now, this 3/4 of the story was true. That one, that Singapore had decided to shut down the schools again, that was true, and I will share with you a story from South China Morning Post on the 16th of May that said schools are being shut down. The reason the schools were being shut down was also clear, that is because a lot of children were coming out to be infected, so they decided not to take a chance. Two clusters particularly had come up, one near the airport, Changi airport, and second at a tuition center for children. So they thought that children are being affected, let us shut down the schools. A new variant was attacking them, but what was the variant? It was the B.1.617. That is the variant that was first identified in India in October last year, and that we get so het up about if somebody calls it the Indian variant. So this actually was the variant found in India, first found in India. I am using Boris Johnson's, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's description, not the Indian variant, but the variant first identified in India. So these children and these other people were mostly infected by this variant. Of this variant, they were particularly affected because again Singapore is a very rich country. Their lab testing, their genome breaking or genome testing per say 100,000 people is enormously higher compared to say India. So they had already done all the genome testing etc. on this virus that was affecting their children, and they identified it as B.1.617.2. So that is like a subset or like a derivative of B.1.617. So it's a subvariant, it is not a new variant, and that subvariant also had already been identified in India. So once again, the fact that they shut down the schools is correct. The fact that they did so because a lot of children became infected is also true, two facts. Third fact, that they were affected by a new virus which seemed to be more infectious to children, or so they thought on the basis of this small sample. Number 3 is also correct. Number 4, that this was a new virus is also correct. Fifth, that this was a new virus that emerged in Singapore is not correct. There is no Singapore variant. Now, you may call it Singapore variant, you may say, no, I just meant that this is a variant that came up in Singapore, not correct. This is the same variant that has gone right now from India to about 48 countries around the world. And a virus variant can have many subvariants, and this subvariant B.1.617.2, B.1.617.2 has also been identified in India. So Singaporeans were right to say that this is not a variant we produce. Also, I must say that I found their reaction also a bit churlish, if not juvenile, because these days they are a rich developed country, they have to have a thicker skin. The British don't complain if you call it the UK variant. Brazilians are calm, but Brazilians are usually cool about many things. Look at the South Africans. South Africans have a variant which is now becoming quite challenging for other nations in Africa. In fact, I saw a story on Mozambique by an Indian origin byline, I think Neha Wadekar, which I will share with you. So that shows that this South African variant is being troublesome there, but okay. Singaporeans decided to be sensitive about it. They reacted at a very high level. Singapore's health minister, that is Ong Ye Kung, first came up to say that this does appear to affect children more, which is what led to the stories in the Indian media. But then, after having said that, once the reactions came from India, Singapore got really angry. So, Singapore's foreign minister, Vivian Balakrishnan, he issued a very strong statement saying that there is no such thing. Singapore's High Commissioner to India, that is Simon Wong, he said, while he welcomes the Indian government statement that they distance themselves from this statement by Arvind Kejriwal and that he doesn't speak for India, that is what India's foreign minister said by way of damage control, because Singapore is a strong friend and a very important partner in the region, in the not just in the Asia Pacific region, but also generally part of the old Indian look east policy, which has now gone on for almost 20-25 years. So, he reached out, but at the same time Singapore High Commissioner said that Singapore reserves the right to use its law to punish those spreading misinformation through social media and through online media. Now, whether they are going to file a case against the chief minister of another sovereign country, obviously they are not. But this was also a warning to those who might be using that information to spread a scare in Singapore or about those travelling in and out of Singapore. And as far as the Delhi chief minister's demand that flights from Singapore should be stopped, flights from Singapore have been stopped for more than a year now. Only thing that runs from Singapore are the few Vande Bharat flights which are to evacuate stranded Indians, and those are rare and few and far in between. So, that is not an issue right now. Now, two takeaways emerge from this. One takeaway is that understand the perils of fact-free arguments, fact-free discussions. You are dealing with science. We are dealing with a very smart virus. So, lean on the scientists, listen to what they are saying and talk science. Don't just read a headline and run with it, because you can spread scare. Because what is it that human beings worry most about? It's about their children. So, we have to be careful. The second thing is, we also need to understand that because we get into these fact-free arguments, that we also get into these wild generalizations. Vaccinate everyone. No country in the world as yet is vaccinating children. These are still, many things are undergoing tests. We will see who needs what. Scientists will see. You and I will not see. Politicians will not see. Politicians will only decide once the scientists have given their inputs and put their names and reputations to it, and got their peers' acceptance of their views. Not just like that. So, vaccinate everyone. Second, let everyone manufacture vaccines. That we are short of vaccines, so let anybody in Ghaziabad or Ghatkopar or Thane or wherever start making vaccines. I know that a lot of drug manufacture in India is done like that. It's almost like, not literally, but it's almost as bad as antibiotics being made in kadhais in Ghaziabad and suburbs of our big cities, because our controls and our quality system is very, very poor. Our regulation is very poor. So, in fact, a lot of the government purchases, bulk purchases, because they go by L1, the lowest tender, a lot of this poor quality stuff comes in. But you cannot manufacture vaccines like that. Vaccines are not manufactured like that. Manufacturing vaccines, that too involving viruses, is a very, very complicated, specialized thing. So, to say let everybody make vaccines, why can't 50 companies make vaccines? It's not going to happen. Let's also not talk like that. And also, sometimes politicians might do it to get some headlines, to get cheap popularity, or under popular pressure, and that can lead to bad consequences. So, once again, jiska kaam usi ko saaje, aur kare to danka baje. People who know how to make vaccines, and there are many companies in India who know how to make vaccines and who can easily learn how to make vaccines. So, this has to be an educated thinking thing, not a fact-free diktat. And third, again, the completely fact-free idea that third wave is going to target the kids. Now, as I said earlier, it's not as if virus is making its choices. बूढ़े लोग तो पहले मैंने सॉर्ट आउट कर लिए, उसके बाद मिडिल एज सॉर्ट आउट कर लिया, अभी मैं मिलेनियल्स को पकड़ रहा हूँ, अब बच्चों की बारी आएगी. सो नेक्स्ट टाइम आई एम कमिंग फॉर चिल्ड्रन. इट डजंट वर्क लाइक दैट. So make no such generalizations. That is the lesson of this controversy. The second takeaway from this is how badly broken our politics is. So badly broken that our foreign minister, obviously he was upset that he had a diplomatic crisis to deal with, that Singapore had reacted very badly to these statements by Arvind Kejriwal. But for him to say that Arvind Kejriwal does not speak for India, that's a bit odd. He could have said Arvind Kejriwal does not speak for government of India, because you and I can speak for India. That's one. The second thing is, no elected government in a sovereign country. This is an elected chief minister of another, even if of another party, however much they may like that chief minister, officially like this. So I will give you one example, or a two-in-one example. When Narendra Modi was chief minister, and the relationship between him and the Congress party was, if anything, a lot more strained than it is between the BJP government now, Modi government, and Arvind Kejriwal. Even then, when he was denied visa by the Americans in some Western countries, Manmohan Singh's government had interceded on his behalf. They had not said, fantastic, you keep him banned, while their CBI etc. were filing cases against Narendra Modi's people, his police officers, Amit Shah and others. So that basic decency, you may call it hypocrisy, but that was maintained. Similarly, why did I say it's a two-in-one example? It was in that period, 2007, then World Economic Forum of Davos used to have a summer Davos in China, because obviously everybody was reaching out to China. China was the flavor of the decade. So they were reaching out to China. So every summer they used to have one Davos-like session in a Chinese city. So this was the World Economic Forum Summer Davos of 2007 in the Chinese city of Dalian. Narendra Modi had gone to speak there on a panel. I happened to be chairing or moderating that panel. In the audience, many questions came up about the government of India, and many critical points were being made, or many critical questions were being made, or also baits were being thrown at him to attack government of India. And he said that, look, I have many differences, political differences with the Congress party or government of India back home, but when I come overseas, I will not speak anything against the government of India, because I am a chief minister. So 2005, 2007, the UPA government had the decency to keep India's sovereign prestige on one side and their internal politics on the other, and so did Narendra Modi. Now times have changed. So same Modi government under same Narendra Modi is taking this view of a chief minister talking. That just tells you that political relationships within our country are now much more broken than they might have been, say, 10-15 years ago. So that is what completes our segment on this Singapore or so-called Singapore variant, or alleged Singapore variant that wasn't there controversy. Now, to understand what's happening in India's villages and how this virus is now reaching India's villages. Rural India is India's soft underbelly. For a country that has pretensions to become a big power, that sees itself as one of the largest economies in the world, where the Prime Minister is promising us or exhorting us to take ourselves to a 5 trillion economy that's almost doubling the size of our economy. Deadlines will shift, but we are a country with many aspirations and also many presumptions about us, but our weakest part, our weak underbelly is rural India. So what the virus has done this time, which it did not do in wave 1, is to reach rural India. And I know that it's easy to knock UP, Bihar and the Hindi heartland, because they are the poorest. So we have many regional imbalances, and Bihar, UP etc. are the poorest parts of the country. So let's not begin there. Let's look at rural areas elsewhere. So we have a story from Neelam Pandey, my colleague, and she was accompanied by Praveen Jain, our photo editor, and you will see these stories running on the screen. She did the story from Hassan. Now Hassan is the home of the Gowda family. Even when Deva Gowda was Prime Minister of India, every late night he would have a conversation with the collector of Hassan district, because that was their family pocket borough and constituency. So she reports a story from Hassan in the rural areas around Hassan that tells you that not only is the virus very widespread, in fact on one day Hassan district alone has been recording more than 3,000 cases a day. Delhi is now coming down, but Delhi is coming in the ballpark of about 3,000. Look at Delhi. It's a state with several between 2 and 3 crore people, depending on how you calculate. But Hassan itself is getting 3,000 cases a day. Hassan has 500 oxygen beds, 70 ventilators beds, all occupied. Test reports take forever coming, and people are really suffering. It's only 200 kilometers away from Bengaluru. So this tells you that the virus is now reaching deep inside rural areas, not just in the Hindi heartland, but all over the country. Then there is a bunch of stories by Rishika Sadam, who is traveling along with the camera person Manisha Mandal right now deep inside Andhra Pradesh. So you see this one story about a young boy, 18-year-old called Shiva. He's a tribal. He comes from a tribal hamlet. Tribal hamlet names are a little bit of a challenge for me, but I will still try and get my pronunciation as right, as correct as possible. So this is the village called Kotha Nandikonda in Nalgonda district in Andhra. This village is in Adai Devulapalli Mandal. Now this tribal village of about 350 people, this young fellow got fever and tested positive. Now he was afraid of going home because his parents are daily wage paid laborers. It's a very poor village. There is no hospital anywhere near that. The closest primary health center is 5 kilometers away. The closest district hospital where you might find treatment for something like COVID, at least some treatment, is 30 kilometers away. Now he was afraid that his daily wage paid laborers were living in the same little house. That house was just one room. So to protect them, and he had no place to go and quarantine himself, there was no shelters, no hospitals, nothing. So he actually made a quarantine home for himself on a tree. See these pictures. I will also share with you the links of the videos. And he spent so many days on this, and he has made a pillow and bucket arrangement for his food and water to come in. And because he cannot use the toilet at home, the home has only one primitive toilet. He goes out in the fields to protect his family. And you know what? He's not illiterate, he's smart. He's a graduate student in Hyderabad. Now he's had to come back home because of the lockdown and because the classes are shut. But see the kind of trouble people are facing in the poorest parts of India. And once again, we are now looking way beyond UP and Bihar, which are the usual suspects. In fact, there is a quote from Shiva in this story that says, "No one in the village came forward to help me. They were all scared of the virus." That's one. Then you see the story from Maharashtra, from Amravati district by Angana Chakrabarti, also of the print, traveling there, who tells you how the picture has changed and how there are a lot more cases of coronavirus infection in the villages of Amravati district than in urban areas. Further, when you come closer to the Hindi belt, then you look at what Fatima Khan is reporting. She is traveling along with Nirmal Podar in Madhya Pradesh. So now we are coming closer to the Hindi heartland, and she reports on the 7 local political leaders who campaigned in the by-election in Damoh and died. And also then another story on a lot of people whose family members went for the Mela in Kumbh, came back infected others, and they are now regretting why did we go, and also asking the government that why did they hold the Mela, because once the government decides to hold the Kumbh Mela, then a lot of the people, particularly those who are faithful, they would think that this is safe, otherwise why would the government have allowed it? Now there is a couple more things that we have to see by way of evidence that tells you how big the crisis in rural India can be and is becoming. So there is an article from Rajesh Jain. Rajesh Jain is a very well known tech entrepreneur. In the past, he's also worked with Mr. Narendra Modi, helping him with his campaign, his politics in the past, particularly until he got elected the first time as Prime Minister of India. So his organization, Prashnam and The Print are jointly running a project called the Print Prashnam Vox Pop series. So in that series, there is an article that tells you that 74% of Indians don't even know where to get themselves vaccinated. Now that is the kind, and most of them are from rural India. So that's what again underlines to us the challenge in rural India. There is one more by Sonia Agarwal of another survey that says that 64% of rural India fears that if they are not given support right now, they may have to drop out of schools and colleges. 64% of students in rural India have that fear. So that is just an overview of where this virus has reached. So take your focus away from where many of us live, that is Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Nashik, Pune, Ludhiana, Chandigarh, or any other city that we talk about, because there is a lot of India, there is much more of India in our villages, and that situation is getting worse. And as far as UP and Bihar are concerned, you are seeing stories every day. So we saw a story by Sajid Ali Mir with this really heartbreaking boat ride on the Ganga, counting the bodies in the river and alongside it. And Jyoti Yadav has now given us the story on the state of what is a big medical college hospital, Darbhanga Medical College Hospital, which looks after the needs of several districts of Bihar, in that region of Bihar. And that hospital, people who described it to her as the hell. People said if there is any hell in the world, it is this. See the pictures, see the pigs, see the dogs, see the beds, see the wards, and you know how bad the situation is. I know people in authorities get angry. So we've got a denial from the medical college hospital, Darbhanga Medical College Hospital, as well as the district authorities, saying that we did, that all this story is wrong, etc., etc. But pictures don't lie and videos don't lie, and I guarantee to you our reporters don't lie. So please watch their coverage and also get a sense of where the problem now is. It is now moved on from the cities where we are much better protected.